The thing about working the night shift at Ridgeview Memorial Hospital is that, at some point, you get used to seeing people at their worst. Mara Ellis, however, was about to see humanity at its most terrifying. Completely motionless. Another day, another disgusting bedpan, Mara muttered as she pushed her cleaning cart down the fluorescent-lit hallway of the 3rd floor. At 32, with student loans that seemed to multiply faster than the bacteria she cleaned up daily. This wasn't exactly where she had pictured herself after getting that biology degree. The hospital's night rhythm was familiar. Nurses typing at stations, doctors hurrying between rooms, the occasional groan from patients who couldn't sleep. Nothing Mara hadn't seen 1,000 times in her 4 years of midnight to 8 shifts. Her watch beeped softly. 2:17 a.m. Time for her coffee break. Then it happened. The squeak of her cart wheels suddenly became the only sound in the entire hospital. The constant background din of medical equipment, voices, and shuffling feet gone. Like someone had hit mute on the entire world. Mara didn't notice at first, too focused on fishing her phone from her pocket to check if her ex had finally responded about the alimony he owed. But when she looked up, she dropped her phone, which, strangely, froze midair, suspended about a foot above the floor. What the hell? Dr. Harlow was frozen mid-stride at the end of the hallway, 1 foot hovering above the ground, his white coat caught in an impossible breeze. Nurse Chun was at the station, her fingers stopped above a keyboard, eyes fixed on a monitor. Even the second hand on the wall clock wasn't moving. "Hello?" Mara's voice echoed through the silent corridor. She waved her hand in front of Nurse Chen's face. Nothing. Not even a blink. "Is this some elaborate prank? Because if it is, it's not funny," she called out, her voice oddly flat in the motionless air. "Did someone slip something into my coffee? Am I hallucinating?" She pinched herself. It hurt. Definitely not dreaming. Mara reached out tentatively and touched Dr. Harlow's shoulder. He didn't respond, but his body was solid, not like a statue, but like a paused human. Warm. Living. Just stopped. Okay. Don't panic," she whispered to herself. "There's a reasonable explanation for this. Maybe I'm having a stroke. Or a psychotic break. Or aliens. Actually, aliens might be preferable to insanity." She ran really to the emergency room. If something weird was happening, surely someone there would know what to do. But the ER was the same. A doctor was frozen with defibrillator paddles above a patient's chest. 2 paramedics were carrying a stretcher through the doors, suspended in motion. Blood from a head wound hung in the air like crimson teardrops, defying gravity. "This can't be happening," Mara breathed. She grabbed a tablet from the nurse's station and checked the time. 2:17 a.m. She looked at her watch. 2:17 a.m. She found a TV remote and turned on the overhead screen. A late-night news broadcast was paused, the anchor's mouth open mid-sentence. The digital time in the corner, 2:17 a.m. Time had stopped, and somehow she hadn't. Mara decided to go outside, praying that this strange phenomenon was just limited to the hospital. She pushed through the automatic doors, which didn't automatically open but gave way to her manual force, and stepped into the parking lot. The night sky was beautiful, stars eerily still without the usual airplane lights crossing through. And speaking of airplanes, Mara gasped when she looked up. 3 planes hung suspended in the dark sky above the city, like toys on invisible strings. On the street, cars were frozen mid-drive. A taxi was caught drifting through an intersection. A man walking his dog was paused mid-stride, the dog's leg hiked up against a fire hydrant. Mara started taking photos with her phone, which thankfully still worked. "No one's going to believe this," she muttered, snapping pictures of the suspended planes, the frozen people. She wandered downtown, passing a coffee shop where steam from espresso machines hung in the air like cotton candy. A police officer was caught mid-yawn. 2 teenagers were frozen in a kiss that, under different circumstances, Mara might have found sweet rather than deeply unsettling. "Hello," she called out repeatedly. "Is anyone else awake?" Nothing but silence answered her. As Mara walked through the frozen city, a strange sense of power came over her. She could do anything right now. Walk into any building. Take anything. The world's first consequence-free crime spree. But the thought filled her with more dread than excitement. Because if everything stayed like this, if she was truly the only moving thing in a world of statues, what kind of life would that be? She found herself at Riverside Park, sitting on a bench, staring at a fountain where water droplets hung suspended in air like glass beads. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Then, so faint she almost missed it, a voice whispered back, "Prepare. This was only a test." Mara jumped up, spinning around. Who said that? Who's there? Silence again, but now with a weight to it, like being watched. "A test for what?" she shouted at the sky. "Who are you?" No answer came. Just the eerie silence of a world on pause. Mara checked her watch again. Still 2:17 a.m.? How long had she been walking? It felt like at least an hour. She looked at her phone. Still 2:17 a.m.? Then, without warning, she heard a whoosh like air rushing back into a vacuum. The fountain splashed. A distant car horn honked. The ambient sounds of the city at night flooded back. Mara's phone suddenly showed 2:20 a.m. 3 minutes. The world had stopped for 3 minutes. She ran back toward the hospital, passing confused-looking pedestrians who seemed disoriented but otherwise normal. When she burst through the hospital doors, everything was in chaos. But not because of the time freeze. No one seemed to realize anything had happened, except that all the electronics were going haywire. Computers rebooting. Alarms randomly going off. Phones ringing. As if every digital system had suffered a simultaneous glitch. "Where were you?" barked her supervisor, Hank, when she returned to her cart. "We've got a mess in room 304. The patient vomited everywhere." "Did you notice anything strange just now?" Mara asked cautiously. Hank looked at her like she'd grown a second head. "Like what?" "Like, everything stopping? The only thing stopping will be your paycheck if you don't get to room 304, he grumbled, walking away. Mara stood there, clutching her phone with its impossible photos. 3 minutes where the world held its breath. 3 minutes where she alone had moved freely through a frozen reality. 3 minutes that changed everything. And a voice, a whisper, "Prepare. This was only a test." A test for what? The first 24 hours after the freeze were surprisingly normal, which only convinced Mara further that she was losing her mind. She called in sick the next night. How could she possibly mop floors when she might be the only person aware that reality had hiccuped? But then the news reports started. "Global electronic anomaly causes widespread system failures," read one headline. 3-minute digital blackout puzzles scientists, proclaimed another. World experiences simultaneous glitch at 2:17 a.m. Eastern Time, said a third. Something had happened. Not just to her. To everyone. Mara sat on her second-hand couch in her tiny apartment, eating cereal straight from the box as she obsessively scrolled through news sites. Every electronic device on the planet had apparently reset itself at exactly the same moment. Planes reported instrumentation failures but somehow remained safely in flight paths. Cars experienced brief stalls but no accidents were reported. Even pacemakers had momentarily glitched, yet miraculously no deaths were attributed to the event. "It's like something pressed the universal pause button," said a physicist on a news interview, making Mara choke on her cereal. But no one was talking about physically freezing. No one mentioned people stopping mid-motion. No one else seemed to remember being suspended in time. Mara created an anonymous account and posted her photos online with a simple caption, "Did anyone else see this during the glitch? Everyone frozen in place." She included shots of the suspended airplanes, the frozen pedestrians, Dr. Harlow mid-stride. The post went viral within hours. "Fake," shouted most commenters. "Good Photoshop job." But some responded differently. "I have a 3-minute gap in my security footage at exactly that time," wrote one user. "Camera was working, but it's just static for 3 minutes." Another commented, "My fitness tracker shows my heart rate flatlined for exactly 3 minutes, but I'm obviously not dead." Company says it's a sensor malfunction. And then came the direct messages. Lots of them. Including one that made her blood run cold. "We know you were awake during the pause. We need to talk. Check your mailbox." Mara ran to her apartment door and hesitantly opened the mailbox in the hallway. Inside was a plain white business card. No name, just an address in the warehouse district and a time, tonight, 10 p.m. "Yeah, right," Mara snorted, tossing the card in the trash. Because meeting mysterious strangers in warehouses always ends well in movies. But curiosity is a powerful force, especially when you've witnessed the impossible. At 9:57 p.m., Mara found herself standing outside a nondescript building with surprisingly good security cameras. She'd brought pepper spray, a small knife, and had told her friend Danny where she was going, with instructions to call the police if she didn't check in by midnight. The door opened before she could knock. "Mara Ellis," said a woman with silver-streaked black hair pulled into a severe bun. "I'm Dr. Elise Novak." Thank you for coming. The interior wasn't a creepy warehouse but a sleek, well-lit laboratory. 5 other people in business casual attire looked up from tablets and computers as she entered. What is this place? Mara asked, grip tightening on the pepper spray in her pocket. We're the Temporal Anomaly Research Team, Dr. Novak explained. A private scientific coalition. And you're the only confirmed walker we've identified so far. Walker? Someone who remained conscious and mobile during the pause, explained a lanky man with thick glasses. We've only theorized that it might be possible. So you know what happened? Mara asked, heart racing. The whole world really did stop? Dr. Novak nodded grimly. We detected a massive quantum disturbance. In simple terms, time was locally suspended for 3 minutes and 7 seconds. But why doesn't anyone remember it? Because their consciousness was paused too, said another scientist. You can't form memories if your neurons aren't firing. Then why wasn't I affected? Mara demanded. The scientists exchanged glances. That's what we hoped you could help us figure out, Dr. Novak said carefully. Would you be willing to undergo some tests? Before Mara could answer, her phone buzzed with a news alert. The trigger identified? Anonymous source claims hospital worker caused global glitch. What the hell? Mara gasped, showing them her phone. Dr. Novak's expression darkened. Conspiracy theorists. They've been working overtime since the pause. Some think it was an alien contact attempt, others blame secret government weapons. Now they're looking for someone to target. And they picked me? How did they even know about me? Your photos were distinctive, said the lanky scientist. Someone probably traced the post. Mara felt sick. I need to go. This is too much. Wait, Dr. Novak said urgently. You're not safe out there alone. Once conspiracy communities fixate on someone. I'll take my chances, Mara snapped. At least they don't want to treat me like a lab rat. As she turned to leave, a new voice spoke. Familiar in a way that sent ice down her spine. You heard it, didn't you? The message. Mara froze. At the back of the room stood a tall, slender person with features so symmetrical they seemed almost artificial. They hadn't been there a moment ago. Mara was certain of it. Who are you? She whispered. The newcomer smiled. Someone who also heard the message. Prepare. This was only a test. The scientists were staring at the stranger with expressions ranging from confusion to alarm. Clearly, this wasn't part of their plan. You shouldn't be here, Vex, Dr. Novak said tensely. And yet, here I am. The person called Vex replied with a smile that didn't reach their eyes. Just like I was here for the 4 previous pauses that your instruments were too primitive to detect. Previous pauses? Mara and the scientists asked almost in unison. Oh yes, Vex said casually. They've been testing the system for months. Shorter freezes, more localized. This was just the first global trial run. Who is they? Mara demanded. Vex fixed those uncanny eyes on her. That's the right question. Not what happened, but who made it happen, and why you, Mara Ellis, unremarkable in every way, were somehow exempt. Vex, that's enough, Dr. Novak snapped. You're scaring her. She should be scared, Vex countered. They're not done, and next time it won't be just 3 minutes. Before anyone could respond, all the lights in the lab suddenly went out. In the darkness, Mara felt a hand grab her wrist. Too slender, too cool to be human. They're coming, Vex whispered directly into her ear. And they're not here for the scientists. When the emergency lights came on seconds later, both Mara and the mysterious Vex were gone. The scientists rushed to the door, but it was locked from the outside. Security footage would later show nothing, just Mara standing there one moment and empty space the next. Outside, running through back alleys with Vex's hand still gripping her wrist, Mara finally found her voice. Where are we going? Who are you really? Vex stopped, those strange eyes reflecting the streetlights like a cat's. Somewhere safe. And I'm like you, someone who stays awake when they don't want us to. There aren't many of us. Who is they? Mara insisted. I don't know what they call themselves, Vex admitted. But I know what they're doing. Testing the limits of their technology. Seeing if they can pause reality itself. For what purpose? What do powerful people always want? Vex asked with a bitter smile. More power. Imagine being able to stop time for everyone but yourself and your chosen few. You could walk into any secure facility, rearrange any situation, assassinate anyone, take anything, all without consequences. A chill ran through Mara, like what I could have done during those 3 minutes, but on a much larger scale. Exactly, and they've nearly perfected it. Except for the anomalies, people like us who remain conscious during the pause. That's why they're interested in me, Mara realized. They want to understand why their technology didn't work on me. So they can fix the flaw, Vex confirmed. Make it perfect. Mara thought back to the hospital, to Dr. Harlow frozen mid-stride, the patient in the ER with defibrillator paddles suspended above his chest. The voice I heard, she said slowly. It wasn't meant for me, was it? I overheard something I wasn't supposed to hear. Vex's expression was grim. Now you're understanding. In the distance, sirens began to wail. Not police sirens, something different. Something that made Vex look suddenly afraid. They're triangulating on us, Vex said urgently. We need to move. Wait, Mara said, pulling her hand free. How do I know I can trust you? You could be one of them trying to capture me. Vex smiled sadly. You don't know. That's the problem with a world where reality itself can be manipulated. But ask yourself this. If I wanted to take you, why not just wait for the next pause when I could walk right up to you while you're frozen? It was a fair point, and Mara was running out of options. What do we do now? She asked. We find others like us. Form a resistance. Figure out who's behind this and stop them before the test becomes the new reality. Mara thought of her mundane life, the hospital floors, the student loans, the fight for alimony. 24 hours ago, her biggest concern had been whether the cafeteria would have decent coffee. Now she was apparently joining a resistance against people who could stop time. This is insane, she muttered. Yes, Vex agreed simply. Welcome to the real world, Mara. The one where nothing is as fixed as people think, not even time itself. As if to punctuate this statement, every digital clock in the vicinity suddenly began flashing the same time. 2:17 a.m. Vex's eyes widened in alarm. They're doing it again. So soon. They must be desperate. Mara felt a strange pressure in her ears, like being underwater. What do? We run, Vex said. And we prepare, because this is still just a test. The real pause is coming. As they sprinted through the dark streets, Mara couldn't help but think this wasn't how she'd planned to spend her night off. But then again, nothing had gone according to plan since 2:17 a.m. yesterday, when the world held its breath, and nothing moved, except her, and whatever was coming next.